Everyone else got a mug with something sweet on it. Mine said, "The family flop." Laughter filled the room. I stayed silent. But what I tore up at dinner, that ended the game, for good. Everyone else got a mug that said something sweet. Mine said, "The family flop." You ever get laughed at by your entire bloodline over breakfast? That's how my family reunion weekend began. Not with hugs, not with catch-ups or inside jokes. With a ceramic mug that quietly and publicly told me what my family really thought of me. And the worst part? I paid for it all. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. We were at Briar Sound Lodge, a lakeside retreat tucked into the forests of Hollow Point, Vermont. Beautiful place. I booked the entire weekend. 6 cabins, catered dinners, group events, paddleboard rentals. Everything. It cost more than I'd like to admit, but I figured this will be worth it. A chance to reconnect, reset, maybe even finally feel included. I should have known better. The first morning, everyone shuffled into the lodge's main hall for breakfast. Long wooden tables, fresh blueberry muffins, coffee brewing in giant carafes. And that's when I saw them. 20 mugs, each one personalized, neatly arranged in front of our assigned seats. I assumed the resort had done them. Some kind of welcome gift. Paige's mug read, "The real MVP," with a little heart drawn under it. Carter said, "Mr. Reliable." My cousin Morgan had one that said, "Hotshot Nurse." Even my aunt got one, "Hostess with the mostest." I scanned the table until I found mine. White ceramic. Basic. Centered in black bold print. The family flop. Laughter. Actual, out-loud laughter. Paige pointed and covered her mouth, trying to act surprised, but she'd clearly seen it before. Carter smirked. Even my mom, Sandra, let out this uncomfortable chuckle and said, "Oh, come on. It's just a little fun." I sat down, held the mug, looked at it. Not even a typo. Not even one of those, haha, it's kind of funny when you think about it things. Just intentional cruelty. Ceramic. Bitter. Hot coffee already poured in. I didn't say anything. Didn't throw the mug. Didn't walk out. Didn't demand to know who made them. Because deep down, I already knew. Paige. She was the family's event planner, self-proclaimed details queen. If there was a group gift, it came through her. And this was a message. Here's what they saw when they looked at me. Divorced quiet, not a doctor or a lawyer works in computers or something. Lives alone in a one-bedroom with 2 mini books and no real plan, showed up to Thanksgiving last year with a store-bought pie, didn't go to Carter's second wedding because of a work thing, doesn't do group selfies. They called me the weird one when I was little. They called me sensitive in high school. They called me private as an adult. No? They just slapped a label on a mug and handed it to me with a blueberry muffin. The wild part? None of them know I was featured in Tech Time magazine 3 months ago. Yeah. A full spread. 5 founders reimagining AI in healthcare. I didn't tell them, because I knew they wouldn't care. They never cared about the stuff that wasn't their version of success. They cared about weddings, new cars, baby announcements, backyard barbecues where everyone wore matching shirts and told the same 3 stories about my uncle falling into the lake. My world never fit into theirs. So I kept it quiet. I funded the reunion, paid for the travel subsidies, upgraded my parents' cabin to include a hot tub, and got handed a mug that said, "The family flop." I spent the rest of breakfast in silence, sipping from the mug. Every sip, bitterness with a splash of cream. I let them laugh, let them snap pictures, let them think I didn't care, because something inside me was clicking into place, like gears turning, like a door I'd kept open for too long, finally shutting. At dinner that night, they asked me to say a few words. You know, since I made all this happen. I stood up, cleared my throat, held up my mug. To family, I said, even when they make it clear where you stand. A few people chuckled, thinking I was joking. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Unzipped it slowly. One by one, I dropped sheets of paper onto the center of the table. Each one printed on thick linen cardstock. Typed. Highlighted. Everyone went quiet. This, I said, is a list of every major thing I've covered for this family over the last 7 years. Loans, tuition, travel, bailouts, down payments, Paige shifted in her seat. Carter froze. Mom opened her mouth, but I cut her off with a smile. Then I pulled out one last paper, thicker than the rest. And this is the legal agreement canceling all of it. Retroactively, I'm dissolving the family trust account I created after Dad's surgery. Any support I was offering? It ends now. Aunt Jackie gasped. Someone knocked over a wine glass. I folded the mug-sized folder back into my bag. I'm the flop, right? I said calm. Even. So you don't need my help. Then I sat down and took another sip. I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the family infrastructure. You want to know the funny thing about being the quiet one? Nobody notices how much of the house you're holding up until you walk out the front door and the roof collapses. That's what I was to them. Not the star. Not the problem. Not the prodigy. Just the invisible scaffolding holding the whole messy structure upright. Let's rewind a bit. The first time I bailed someone out, I was 25. Paige had maxed out 2 credit cards buying furniture for her dream apartment she couldn't actually afford after her master's program. She was crying over the phone, saying she couldn't tell Mom or Dad because they'd be disappointed. Funny, huh? So I sent her $3,000. No questions. No judgment. No expectation of repayment. I even wrote in the memo, "We've all been there." She never mentioned it again. After that, it became routine. Carter called 2 years later. His second marriage had just ended, and he was behind on child support. Said he'd figure it out eventually, but needed to avoid garnishment or it could get messy. I wired him $1,500. Then another $900 3 weeks later. Then $500 just to hold him over. He bought a new gaming chair with it. Didn't even lie. Just sent me a selfie sitting in it with the caption, "Bro, this thing reclines 180 degrees. Peak comfort." When Dad needed surgery in 2018 and the insurance lapsed, guess who fronted the $12,000 pre-op cost? Me. And when Sandra, Mom, wanted to fly to California to clear her head and visit a spiritual retreat after a fight with Dad, I covered that too. Never told anyone, because it didn't feel like a favor at the time. It felt like my role. See, I was the good son, the one who didn't cause waves, didn't need to be checked on, didn't complain. They called it independence, but it was self-erasure. Because while Paige got birthday blowouts and Facebook albums full of praise, I got a half-hearted text that said, "Hope you're doing something fun today." Carter got grilled steaks and hand-me-down tools from Dad. I got a joke mug and the unspoken job of financial triage. It wasn't just money either. It was labor. I redesigned Sandra's Etsy page when her side hustle needed a refresh. I ghostwrote Paige's LinkedIn summary. I built Carter's website for his freelance hustle that lasted 4 months and ended with him pivoting back into vibes. No one paid me. No one offered. Hell, they rarely even said thank you. And you want to know the worst part? I kept doing it. Because a part of me, the broken, tired part that still wanted to be seen, believed that if I just did enough, they'd stop seeing me as the odd one. The disappointment. The weird tech guy who never brings a date. So I chipped in and smiled and changed the subject when they joked about my non-existent dating life or said, "Well, at least Elliot won't be the one to bring drama this year." And every time, I let it slide. Until the mug. Until the family flop was printed and handed to me with a smirk. And I realized they never saw me. Not really. They saw what I could give them, but not what it cost me. After that breakfast, when I dropped the receipts and canceled the family fund, I got called dramatic, unhinged, unappreciative. Carter even pulled me aside and said, "You really blindsided everyone, man. Not cool." "You mean like you blindsided your ex with 2 kids and no income plan? Like Paige blindsided me with a public humiliation I paid for?" That night, I sat alone in my cabin at Briar Sound and pulled up the spreadsheet I kept. Yeah, I had a whole file. I'm not chaotic. I'm methodical. $3,000. Paige's credit card, $2,900. Carter's child support, $12,000. Dad's surgery, $4,400. Family holiday trip. They never even thanked me. $900. Last-minute wedding vendor save, $7,500. Sandra's retreat plus rental car total, $30,800. That doesn't include the thousands in shared logins, subscriptions, and monthly Just cover me this once charges. It also doesn't include the hours of emotional labor, the late-night phone calls, the life advice, the job interview prep, the resume edits, the emergency rides, the times I played therapist when they didn't believe in therapy. So no, I wasn't the family flop. I was the ghost builder, the one who laid the bricks, painted the walls, paid the bills, and never got handed a key. So when I shredded those papers in front of them, when I said, "You don't need my help anymore," and smiled, it wasn't pettiness. It was self-respect. It was me walking out of a house I built because I finally realized it was never mine to live in. They thought I was bluffing, right up until I ripped up their future in front of the salad bar. After I dropped the receipts and canceled everything, the room was frozen. Nobody moved. Paige's face? Blank. Carter looked like he'd swallowed a wasp. Sandra had that tight, mom smile she used when she didn't know if she should be comforting or covering up. And me? I just sat back down and sipped from the mug that started it all. The family flop. Not a word was spoken for nearly a minute. The silence was deafening, like they were all trying to do the math in their heads, not just the money, but the implications. Aunt May finally broke the silence. She leaned in, reading one of the documents I'd left behind. "This says you were covering the lodge deposit?" I nodded. "Paid in full. 3 months ago." Carter turned to Sandra. "You told me Mom and Dad were splitting it." She blinked. "I thought they were." I didn't even look up from my glass. "They didn't." "I did. Like I always do." Paige piped up, voice sharp. "Okay, this is so unnecessary. It was a joke, Elliot. The mug thing? It was just funny. No one meant it seriously." I smiled. "Did anyone laugh when you read yours?" She paused. "What? When you read the real MVP on your mug? Did you laugh? Or did you smile and think, yeah, that's about right?" Her cheeks went red. She didn't answer, because the truth was written all over her face. She expected that kind of praise. She believed it. Carter scoffed and pushed back from the table. "So you're mad you're not getting a trophy or something?" I looked right at him. "No, I'm mad I've been the safety net while you two have been climbing ladders you didn't even build." Paige crossed her arms. "You're making it sound like we're lazy or entitled. You offered to help us." "Yeah," I said, "but I thought I was helping family. Turns out, I was just enabling people who thought I owed them." That's when Sandra finally spoke. She had the nerve to say, "Honey, this feels a little dramatic." That word, dramatic, it hit me like a punch in the gut. Because that's the word they always use when I stand up for myself. Not honest, not brave, just difficult. So I stood up, quietly, reached into my bag again, and pulled out the manila envelope I'd brought just in case they pushed back. Inside were printed copies of a canceled check for the family reunion photographer, a rental contract I rescinded for the lake house for Thanksgiving, a formal document dissolving the shared family savings account I'd managed since Dad's surgery, a final notice to the accountant that I was removing my name as co-signer for Carter's business loan, a letter to the university revoking the education trust I'd set up for Paige's daughter. Because Paige never once contributed, I laid them out, slowly, on the table like I was dealing cards. Their faces? Panic. Like I was performing surgery without anesthesia. I picked up one page, the education trust, and held it out toward Paige. "I'd suggest starting a 529 of your own. You've got 5 years before tuition hits. Better start saving now." She didn't take it. So I tore it in half. Then the next one. And the next. Rip. 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 No yelling. Just paper tearing and stunned silence. Sandra stood up finally. "Elliot, stop. Please. You don't have to do this." I looked her right in the eye. "You're right. I don't. Not anymore." Then I dropped the mug. Right into the trash. Ceramic clinked against glass bottles and napkins. "That's where that belongs," I said. Along with the version of me who stayed silent. I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. Just walked across the deck, down the gravel path, past the cabins I paid for, and back to mine. Locked the door. Sat on the bed. And exhaled. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up. "Paige, you embarrassed all of us. Congratulations." "Carter, you really think you're better than us now?" "Sandra, I just wish you'd talk to me first." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a blank note on my phone. Titled it, Things I never said, but should have. I started typing. I'm not a disappointment. I'm your lifeline. Or at least, I was. The next morning, I checked out early, paid my own bill, left the rest on them. The desk clerk asked, "Did you enjoy your stay?" I smiled. It was eye-opening. They didn't apologize. They just tried to change the story. The day after I left Briarsound Lodge, my phone was a landmine. Not with apologies. With edits. Revisions. Soft rewrites of everything they'd done. Like if they just rephrased things enough, maybe I'd forget what actually happened. First came the social media posts. Paige uploaded a filtered photo of the group holding their mugs, mine conveniently cropped out, with the caption, "Nothing like a little sibling banner to keep us grounded. #family first. #all love here." I almost laughed. Because she wasn't even being subtle. She was painting over the fire damage while the house was still smoking. The comments flooded in. "I love this. Wish I had a family like yours. Where's Elliot though? Did y'all Photoshop the mug?" That last one. I screenshotted it. Pinned it in a new folder. Receipts. Carter followed it up with a tweet. "Some people can't take a joke." Wild. He didn't name me. But he didn't have to. Everyone close enough to know knew. Then Sandra posted a blurry photo of the lake with a caption in faux wisdom font. "Sometimes families fall, but roots run deep." Classic. Manipulate with metaphors. Avoid the issue. Make me the storm, and them the roots. The text kept coming, too. Sandra's first message that week. "Elliot, we all have our moments. Let's not let one morning undo decades of memories." One morning. Not the mug. Not the years of quiet labor. Not the erasure. Just one morning. I didn't respond. Because if there's one thing I've learned, people who've never had to question their power don't recognize when they're abusing it. Aunt May called. She was the only one who didn't defend the others outright. She said, "I think they know they messed up. They just don't know how to say it." I replied, "If they don't know how, it's because they've never had to." And that was the truth. They were used to me smoothing things over. Used to me laughing it off. Used to me shrinking. But that version of me? He stayed back at Briarsound, buried under the shattered pieces of that mug. Later that week, Paige tried again. A voice message this time. "I seriously didn't mean to hurt you, okay? I thought it would be funny. It was just a mug. I didn't know you'd take it so personally." That one made me pause. Because it was almost an apology. Almost. But not quite. Because, see, I didn't take it personally. I took it accurately. There's a difference. I started journaling again. Not because I needed to vent, but because I needed to remember. I titled one page, "What It Wasn't About." And I listed, it wasn't about a mug. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about being dramatic. It wasn't about revenge. Then I titled the next page, "What It Was About." It was about finally being honest. It was about setting the record straight. It was about years of being useful, never valued. It was about them laughing and me realizing I didn't owe them my silence anymore. It was about truth. The following weekend, I went to a small local event in my city, a tech roundtable. Nothing fancy. But when I introduced myself, someone across the table lit up. "Wait, are you the Elliot? From the Tech Time feature?" I blinked. Yeah, that was me." She smiled. "Dude, that was badass. We used your article in our pitch deck last month." And in that moment, I realized, outside my family, I'm not the flop. I'm the blueprint. Funny how the world saw my worth long before the people who shared my DNA. Later that night, I got a text from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, one who wasn't at the reunion. "I heard what happened. Just wanted you to know. I always admired how you stayed calm while everyone else made noise. You were never the flop." That one hit. Then something unexpected happened. Tech Time posted a follow-up article on the digital impact of independent developers in healthcare and quoted me again. No interview. They just pulled from the original. The article trended locally, and someone, no clue who, shared it to the old family Facebook group. Caption: "Thought y'all might like to see what Elliot's been up to." Comments were turned off. Of course. But the silence? It was loud. A few days later, Paige sent one more message. "I saw the article. I didn't realize. You've done a lot." Still not an apology, but a crack in the wall. One I wasn't interested in fixing. It started with one screenshot. Then the internet took the mug and shattered the silence. I didn't leak it. Let's get that out of the way first. I didn't post the mug, didn't send the receipts, didn't write the captions, but someone did. And the moment it hit the internet, everything changed. A week after the reunion, I was at a coffee shop, working, headphones in, minding my business, when my phone buzzed 5 times in a row. Tyler, my second cousin from my dad's side, messaged, "Yo, you're trending." Sort of. Check Reddit. Search family reunion mug. I did. And there it was. Front page of r/well that sucks. 48K upvotes. Photo of my mug. The family flop caption. Brother hosted and paid for the entire family reunion. They gave him this mug. The comments? A war zone of empathy and rage. This is emotional abuse disguised as a joke. Tell me you're the scapegoat without telling me. I hope he took the mug and left them with the bill. I'd sue for emotional damages and win. People like this always call you dramatic when you finally push back. The top comment, he wasn't the flop. He was the foundation. They just never looked down until it cracked. That one made me pause, because it was dead on. By the next day, screenshots of the thread were circulating on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Someone even made a meme, split image, left side, my mug, right side, a cracked teacup with the caption, "What happens when the family's scapegoat stops pouring?" That one got reposted by a verified account with 2 million followers. My DMs? Flooded. Some funny, some heartbreaking, some that made me sit in silence for an hour. Strangers from around the world, this is my brother's life story. I've been the Elliot in my family for 10 years. Thank you for not staying quiet. This gave me the courage to cancel a toxic Thanksgiving invite. I'm the flop, but I'm also the reason my mom still has a house. You're not alone. A few old friends messaged me too. People I hadn't spoken to since college. Just saw your story. I had no idea. You were always the quiet one. But now I get it. Even someone I dated years ago reached out. You always made me feel like I could lean on you. I didn't realize no one ever gave you the same in return. I'm sorry. And then, Tech Time reached out. Not for a correction, not for damage control, but for a follow-up profile. Their email read, "Your original feature brought attention to your work. But this moment? This is something more. It's not just about code or AI anymore. It's about the invisible people who carry everything. We'd love to talk about that." I said yes. The new article dropped 3 weeks later. Headline, "The Family Flop Who Built the Future, When Quiet People Finally Speak." The piece wasn't cruel. It was careful. It focused on how often the most generous people in families are overlooked, expected to give endlessly without recognition. How family dynamics can become hostile without ever raising voices. How silence can be a survival tactic until it turns into a prison. And how sometimes breaking out means shattering expectations. I didn't name anyone in the interview. No Paige, no Carter, no Sandra, because this wasn't revenge. It was release. But the aftermath? Oh, it came fast. Sandra sent me a text at 3:12 a.m. "You could have come to me. We didn't need the whole world involved." I replied, "You didn't listen when it was just me." No response. Paige posted a quote to her Instagram. "Everyone makes mistakes. But some people would rather be famous for pain than quiet about healing." The comments roasted her. "Sis, you gave your brother a mug calling him the flop. You're not the victim here. You can't shame someone into silence and then be mad they finally spoke." Even Carter, the last holdout, cracked. He messaged me, not even angry. Just, "I didn't realize how much you were holding. I think I just assumed you were fine. That you liked being the guy who handled everything." I waited a day, then replied, "No one likes being invisible. They just learn how to stop asking for what no one offers." He read it, didn't respond. And honestly, that was enough. The article got shared over 100K times. Someone printed a quote from it on a mug. Just because I stayed quiet doesn't mean I was okay. It went viral. I bought one. I placed it right next to the last gift I kept from Briar Sound, the torn corner of the original Family Flop mug. I didn't glue it back together. Didn't throw it away. Just framed that jagged piece of ceramic in a shadow box. Labeled it, what they gave me, what I gave back. I stopped waiting for a seat at their table and built my own, one I actually want to sit at. 2 months after the reunion, everything got quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Strategic quiet. Paige stopped posting vague quotes. Carter stopped subtweeting. Sandra, who once sent me at least one "hope you're well" text a week, went completely dark. I think they assumed if they stopped talking about it, I'd forget it happened. But forgetting was never the goal. I wasn't trying to erase what they did. I was trying to acknowledge what it meant. And now that I had, I wasn't going back. I kept the peace I earned. Spent weekends hiking solo. Took a cooking class just because. Said no to 3 different family invitations, 2 birthdays, and a baby shower. No explanations. No soft landings. Just can't make it. Hope it goes well. And for the first time ever, no guilt. Because I'd spent 10+ years shaping myself around their comfort. And now, I was finally shaping my life around my own. The Tech Time follow-up turned out to be the start of something bigger. A small publisher reached out about a book. They wanted something like a memoir, part professional, part personal. At first I hesitated. I mean, who cares what the family flop has to say? But the editor said something that stuck. You didn't go viral because your story was extreme. You went viral because it was familiar. Most people just never say it out loud. So I wrote. Nights, mornings, weekends, 1 chapter at a time. Every word felt like exhaling. Then, in late fall, a package arrived at my door. No return label. Inside, a box of cheap white mugs. All blank. Except one. Black text. Familiar font. It read, "We miss you." No note. Just that. It wasn't signed. But I knew who sent it. Because nothing screams unspoken guilt like trying to fix things with merch. I didn't throw it away. I didn't respond, either. I just set it on a shelf, right next to the framed shard of the family flop mug. Side by side. The wound and the apology. Incomplete on purpose. Because that's what it all was. Incomplete. The following month, I threw a dinner party. Small. 6 people. No family. All chosen. Some coworkers. A neighbor I barely knew but always waved to. A friend I reconnected with after the article went viral. I cooked. We drank wine. Laughed too loud. Talked too late. At one point, someone raised a glass and said, "To this little, weird, wonderful table." And I just sat back, smiled, and thought, this is it. This is the table I always needed. It's not about revenge. Not anymore. It's about recognition. About peace. About knowing that you don't have to keep auditioning for love. Every so often, someone from the family still tries to reach out. Usually around holidays. Sometimes Paige. Sometimes Sandra. Once, even Carter sent a short message. No drama. Just hope you're doing well. And I am. I really am. I didn't need closure from them. I just needed distance. The book comes out in 6 months. Working title? Flop. How One Mug Made Me Walk Away and Mean It. It's already got a wait list. And not because I'm some celebrity, but because there are thousands of people out there still drinking from mugs that say, disappointment, problem child, too sensitive, too distant, dramatic, and they're all just waiting for permission to say, I don't have to sit here anymore. So yeah, they'll probably patch things up eventually. Keep their stories neat. Keep the group chat moving. But me? I'm not going back. Because I finally learned, I don't need their table. I built one where I belong. And the view? It's perfect. He didn't burn bridges. He just stopped crossing ones built on silence, guilt, and expectation. The mug was never the point. It was just the first time they said out loud what he'd felt for years. And now? He doesn't need a family that only values what he gives. He's found peace in who he is. If this story touched you, share it with someone who remembers those days too.